Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Monday Morning Digest. I'm your host, Godfrey, Gichuki, and I'm pleased that you're tuned in today. Please welcome. I hope you had a nice weekend. Today is the 6th of May, 2024. The year is rolling very, very fast indeed. And I do hope that you're moving on well and building. And welcome to the new week. Today we have an interesting conversation. I have a wonderful guest with me on the show. All my guests are wonderful and amazing. I have with me my friend Gitau. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you here, and I believe today we're going to engage on a very, very important subjects. So today we are talking about trauma-proofing your mind, and my guest here is going to be, sharing with us some of our expert knowledge and background, and I will be introducing her to us shortly. I believe you're going to enjoy it. But before we get on to the conversation, I want to remind you that we are live on Elevate TV Kenya, Facebook and YouTube channels. So those of you that are probably tuned in through those particular channels, please share with your friends and get to follow this conversation. And again, you can always watch after. If you're watching from TV, then I want to let you know that we are actually live on the social media platforms. That way you can be able to revisit this conversation. So welcome to the show, and I believe that as we talk this morning, you're going to learn a lot. The issue of trauma, let me just give you a quick, why we are talking about trauma-proofing your mind. We know that we live in very interesting times. There are events that can trigger trauma, loss of a loved one, perhaps a divorce, a separation, a loss of a job, loss of an income, bankruptcy. There are events in life that can actually send us through into a dark situation. Maybe you've been looking for a job for a long time. You are a recent graduate, and you're still puzzling about how your career can take some shape or form, and perhaps you feel like things are not going your way. Some of these events can really push you to the corner. So but today, before you get in trouble, before you begin to allow some of the psychological pains that are associated with trauma, we have an answer for you. So my guest is going to be talking to us about how to trauma-proof our life. And we're going to be asking you to share with us your experience. Please, in the course of this discussion, if you're going through some traumatic situation, please write to us, send us a text. There's a number on the screen, so you can send us a text. Please don't call, but just send us a text through that number, 0719 666655. and share with us your experience, your questions, and my guest is going to be able to answer these questions. Okay, so welcome, Jane Gitau. Jane Gitau is a psychologist. She's a therapist and trauma therapist for that matter, and a marriage counselor and therapist for that matter, and a mediator. You know, Jane is a mediator. She's a certified mediator. So if you have some unresolved disputes around you, Jane can come in very handy in answering that. So Jane, welcome to the show. And if there's something else I haven't said about your that small introduction, you can add a little bit of that before we get to the conversation.
Yeah, so as my host has said, my name is Jane Jerry Maura Gitau. I'm very, very grateful to be here. I'm a counseling psychologist. It's very, very important to note that.
Yes.
I am a certified mediator, where actually I deal quite a lot with marital issues. That is premarital, marital, you know. I also deal with addictions.
Okay.
Besides the trauma.
Okay.
Which is very key, because it also arises actually from the trauma.
All right.
And so trauma, I really want to thank LV TV for choosing such a topic at such a time like this,
okay,
when actually the society is experiencing trauma right now.
Mm-hmm.
And many people don't even know what they're experiencing. But just to be simple, we are calling it trauma. And trauma, basically, these are painful moments. They are distressing times of
okay,
your life, the experiences that you have gone through. And when you talk about the PTSD, which was actually our core topic, we are talking about things that have remained long in you, you know, unresolved issues, you know. You went through a situation, childhood experiences, and then for some reason, you didn't resolve them. This is because maybe you didn't even know that you had a problem. But what happens is that the triggers are the things that actually show you, hey, kumbe hiki kitu yenyewe sikusolve, you know.
All right.
You will never know that you didn't resolve an issue until there's a trigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So quite some wonderful introduction there. Just you know, the technical terms, PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can unpack that so that people understand. I think people talk about PTSD quite a lot, okay, and some of our viewers may want to know what exactly is that. So you can unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah. So PTSD. This stands for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
So basically, these are disorders. They are actually, it's a mental illness, by the way.
Okay.
It has been classified as a mental illness. That is by DSM-5 has actually classified that as a part of the mental illnesses.
Okay.
So if somebody told you that you have a mental illness just because you have the PTSD, they're not wrong to say that.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate that our society, the way you look at mental illness,
mm-hmm,
we always think of mental illness as schizophrenia.
Okay.
Schizophrenia basically is madness.
Oh, okay,
you know?
okay.
But any mental distressing issue is actually a mental illness.
Okay.
However,
mm-hmm,
people think that mental illnesses can never heal.
Okay.
But I can tell you for free, PTSD is manageable.
Okay.
And you can actually get out of it.
Okay.
Yes, it is very, very possible.
All right. Yeah. So because you're saying it's a disorder, and and the way you kind of get to discover it is through triggers. You know, something happens, and then you realize, oh, maybe I did not deal with this issue. Let me ask you to speak into something like, for example, so I recently talked to someone over the weekend. This guy almost drowned in, I think, with a vehicle or something. So, when they see the flooding right now, it's triggering some memory.
Yeah.
So they were saying they were like, you know, they were feeling like paralyzed or something like that. You know, they can recall that moment, and therefore now, the situation we have right now, the flooding situation, is really triggering their memory. How do they deal with that kind of a thing?
Okay, first of all, that one we call it reliving. You know, you start reliving. Yani, you take yourself back in time, and you remember how, you know, you start replaying the whole thing, the way that river almost drowned you, or whatever it was. Like even going to Mombasa.
Right.
There are people who lost their people, have lost people, there are people during the holidays in Mombasa, or maybe you swam, you almost drowned and you were rescued. So basically what happens is that such people will be scared of going to places like Mombasa, or any pool of water may bring those kind of memory.
Okay.
But now, when it comes to dealing with those issues, because we can probably now talk about a few issues, because dealing with them is more or less the same way.
Yes.
Like even in marriage, if for example, let's say you've been divorced,
right,
and you're here, you're a beautiful young woman, and you consider going back to marriage.
Okay.
It is, if the divorce process was ugly,
okay,
you're likely to keep on saying, no, I can't even dare this, because I know after all, I'll still be divorced.
All right.
But if the process was a bit friendly, it was very calm, you realize it's not scaring. Basically, it is the things that happen around that process that can make the event so bad, Anything can be resolved in a peaceful manner. Even the rescue process can be done in a way that it doesn't leave a trauma.
Okay. Yeah. Well, of course, only that if somebody is drowning, you need to save them from the water, whichever way, even if it means that you put a painful hook on their stomach and pull them out. Anyway, so yeah. I mean, if you are drowning, what you want is to be saved.
Precisely. Yeah, you're right.
You want to survive it.
Yes,
certainly. So, but then let's talk about, I mean, you are the experts in this whole issue of dealing with traumatic situation. So there are many, like we have described, there are many events that can trigger trauma.
Yes.
You mentioned divorce, you mentioned, say, for example, some of the...
sexual abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Violence at home.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you, the big question in this morning is, how do you trauma-proof your mind? Is there a way you can kind of prepare yourself? I mean, now that, people are listening to us doing this conversation, how do you prepare yourself? In case you're going to be in a situation that is traumatizing, how do you prepare your mind? In which way do you need to begin to think so that the events do not have a huge impact on you?
First of all, the best thing is to know and believe, because that is the truth, that once in a while or periodically, you'll actually experience drama and trauma in life.
Okay.
So the moment, first of all, you accept, you're not in control.
Okay.
Because you see, like now, when we say, for example, in a wedding, pastors, you put us through these words that... for better and for worse.
Right.
Now, for better, it is always imaginable. Oh, I'll buy a nice car. Oh, he'll build me a nice house. You take me to Hawaii or wherever.
Yeah.
I always want to imagine very good things. So basically, it is very easy to imagine the better.
Okay.
But for the worse, surely, if I asked you the worst that you expect in your marriage, what are you likely to talk about? I don't expect you to start saying after 2 years of our marriage, oh, my husband will experience accident and he'll lose his legs or something like that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we are never prepared for the worst.
Okay.
And so basically, the best thing and the best way to trauma-proof your mind is to accept that you're not in control of so many other things. And so exposure, like now, people who are well exposed, they are likely to deal better with trauma than people who are not exposed.
Okay.
Like now, what we've seen that happened in Mai Mahiu, it is such a great shocker. For sure, it is a serious trauma. So remember, there is a trauma, then there is the PTSD. So the trauma occurs, but how you deal with it is what will determine whether you will experience PTSD or not.
Okay.
Because PTSD, we are talking of post-traumatic. Ni kitu yani uliweka, ukasema hii, I'll deal with it tomorrow. You know the way you just procrastinate.
Right.
So you experience a thing, and then you're like, hii ni kitu ndogo. You know, the way people just want to, play down even very serious issues. So those things that you keep on playing down, those things that you keep on procrastinating, those are the things that bring about the PTSD, because you're talking of post. You did not deal with it.
Okay.
So you kept it somewhere, or you assumed it, and then you're now getting to deal with it in the future.
Okay.
You lost your mother. How did you deal with the death of a parent? The death of a parent is not just another death. So don't just say, see, ni kifo tu, see kifo tu. When the term begins and your school fees cannot be paid, is when you realize, this is not just another person who died. This is a parent. This is somebody who played such a great role in my life. And so that thing reoccurred to you in a very big way, because now what you realize the role of that person. Even for a husband, sometimes maybe you see like a husband and wife, they always have some few crashes here and there. But out of that, you're likely to assume that that person was not very important. And that is why you have so many sayings that say, you'll only know that one was important once they are gone, because you assumed them. But while they are gone, and you cannot trace a sufuria in your own house, while they are gone, and you don't even know, the other day, I have a friend of mine whose wife was admitted in hospital.
Right.
And we met at the hospital when I'd go to visit the wife, and he was telling me what he was experiencing. That he has 4 girls.
Yes.
No boy.
Yeah.
And here he is a man, and
Yes.
the woman is at the hospital. And when he's trying to track their clothes, a party, so he kept on buying. And of course, anaenda nanunua. And those things were there, but just because he never bothered, because another person attended to that issue, it became a big issue. So imagine that now person even goes ahead and die.
Okay.
So you don't track nothing, And so this is now when you start seeing there are some things that you ought to have dealt with that you never dealt with. And so it is very, very important that when you go through a traumatic issue, like now what we are going through, because we have acute, we have chronic, we have all these challenges. We have multiple, people can even experience multiple trauma.
Okay.
Whereby, for example, like now we've seen in Mathare, your child alipelekwa na maji.
Right.
Yeah? And even your things were taken by the water. But over and above that, serikali tena imekuja. Kale kanyumba kalikuwa kamebaki. Imebeba. Umeambiwa you go to the higher ground. So this higher ground are not even clear to you. You have not even buried your child.
Right.
Ajaonekana. Hajaonekana. Right now you can even, I was just asking myself, probably it's a crazy question. With all this, if the whole of your land is under the water,
yes,
even if your person died, where do you even bury them, by the way?
Yes.
No, I mean, it's a crazy question,
right,
but it's something that is worth even thinking.
Yes.
That your person would have to remain in the mortuary. Yani unateseka tu, there's a lot of trauma. But true, it is very, very important when you're going through a traumatic situation. Don't assume it. Useme mimi ni mwanaume. Mwanaume ni mtu.
All right. Jane, I like that. I think you really, you've turned on all the... Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, as you follow this conversation, we're talking about trauma-proofing your mind, and Jenny here is telling us, don't assume anything. Don't just bury something under under the sand. Just pack something away and not confront it. So Jane, tell me, if you're dealing with something that is painful, most people, their reaction is to avoid the pain, to avoid, reliving the sad memories. Is that the right strategy, or should you then just have to kind of confront the painful situation and maybe relive the sad memories, cry if you have to cry? I mean, you are the expert. How do you actually kind of like wrestle the trauma so that then it doesn't get a hold of you? If you don't have, because you're saying you shouldn't ignore it or pack it aside, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so avoidance is actually one way of people trying to deal, on their own.
Yes.
They try to deal with that particular issue.
Okay.
But for sure, like now you talked about a man who was drowning.
Yes.
Now, suppose this person was living at Green Park.
Yeah.
They almost drowned wherever it was.
Yeah.
So according to them, that was a very unsafe place.
Yes.
But now at Green Park, the water has found you right where you are.
Right.
And not just water, it's so much water.
Okay.
Whereby you have to literally be rescued. So how do you do? So the issue of avoidance is because you can only avoid it for so long.
Okay.
These things can find you right where you are.
Okay.
And so the best thing is about confrontation.
Okay.
And this is where, for example, as a psychotherapist, I'll use skills or techniques like exposure therapy. This is where basically like you flood the person with their fears.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, like let's say whatever fear it is.
Yes.
People, when you're flooded with it.
Yes.
Like now, let's say you go to China or even Dubai. There's these places that people walk on grass.
Yeah.
So you take the person there, whereby the whole stretch is grass, and there's no way you can cross over. You just have to walk there. But now, by seeing people going back and forth, you'll be like, oh, hata wanaenda na hata wakufi. Let me try. You know, and then, you know, if that person was drowning, then you try looking for a better way to approach this whole issue. Why was I drowning? For example, like personally, when we went for honeymoon, I knew how to swim because I went to a school where we had swimming pool.
Right.
And I was actually reasonably good in that.
Okay.
But my husband wasn't very good in swimming. He actually almost passed on at Naivasha, and I had to literally go in and save him. I'd never saved anybody.
Right.
I had to go in, just like you're saying it. I was afraid that I'll go, maybe hold me anyhow, and we both go. But somehow I just trusted God that the water, unfortunately it was a deep end. So I just held his hand and the water just lifted him. So that very person avoiding swimming doesn't make you better. You're supposed to confront the issue. So why was I drowning? So now you tell yourself, yes, I was drowning because I did not know how to swim. Suppose I learned how to swim.
Right.
There you are. So once you learn how to swim, it means that if you're exposed to a similar situation, you know, you will not do what? Drown. So this is where I'm saying you expose the very person on the very fears that they have.
Okay.
Because that is the only way. After all, this life, you're not in control.
Yes.
And if you're not in control of your situations, then the best thing you can do is to control your reaction toward the issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. You know, I like the bit of controlling your reaction. I mean, you're not in charge of life.
Yes.
You know, life will happen.
Life will happen, whether you like it or not.
Okay.
And you don't even know, you don't even control how it happens.
Okay.
It will be thrown to you.
Right.
And once it is thrown to you, like no divorce can come. You may not be for it. But you see, it takes two to tango. If the other person is not interested, what do? You must face it, you know. And so basically, like, exposure is very key. For example, let me give you an example of, personally, I'll keep on referring to me.
Yes.
Because I have a challenged child.
Yeah.
She's 16 years now.
Okay.
She suffered, we call it, what do you call this condition? Anyway, I'll explain to you later. Now, because of this condition, my own children, I have 4 children.
Yes.
So the 3, because she's the last born, they are kind of used to this condition because sometimes it was not easy to manage it.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And as we moved along, they got used to it. So when you get used to a condition, or for example, maybe your mother, you get married, you get born to a parent, or even later in life, she become depressed, or even becomes schizophrenia.
Okay.
So children who are exposed to schizophrenic condition,
yes,
from a parent or even one of the siblings, you realize that so many other things don't become a shocker. And they kind of grow with this condition. So it is not a big deal.
Right.
Or maybe a chokora who is on the roadside. Wamezoea kulala na baridi.
Yes.
Saa zingine unalala njaa, saa zingine unachapwa. These are not, you see, now this is trauma to a kawaida person.
Yes.
I mean, to
a like, protected person.
There you are, protected person.
Yes.
So if a child is going to Brookhouse School,
yeah,
na mwingine anaenda hapa Mathare, anaenda mguu, amezoea kuingia kwa maji. So this flood is a trauma to a child who is going to Brookhouse, who was always been dropped.
Right.
Now all of a sudden the parents have died, and maybe they have to go by matatu. That is trauma already. Even entering in a matatu.
Yes.
Is trauma.
Right.
So anything can be called trauma. And so the best way is not it's not a trauma proving people really.
Yeah.
Or the best way to trauma prove is to expose.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. I love that, Jane. Amazing. Those of you that are following this conversation, we are talking about trauma-proving your mind, trauma-proving your life, your heart and mind and soul and spirit. Jane, I think you've shared with us very, very amazing insights. And I want you to, send us your questions. I want you to send us your comments and tell us, also tell us where you're watching from, where you're following this conversation. conversation from, and let's know if you've experienced some kind of traumatic situation, how have you dealt with it, and you know, maybe if you have questions, if you're still struggling, or you know someone that is struggling, maybe you can tell us, and then we can ask Jane to give us more ideas. So thank you very much, Jane. Indeed, I think you have talked about that it's not good to avoid. Trying to avoid this situation is not helpful, and we need to confront the traumatic situation. Confrontation and exposure. Confrontation and exposure, I think, is like the antidote. Like you are describing how your children are exposed to one of their siblings having, you know, some kind of disability challenges.
Yes.
And so for them, that's not a big deal. But for a child who has never, you know, experienced that, when they see this, they actually find it, you know, very, very frustrating. And they kind of get shocked and they're scared. They don't know what to do. So that's very amazing. So we're going to wrap this up. And I want you to tell us how then to find healing, pathway to healing, so that we, you know, I guess if there are steps, you know, maybe exposure is one of them, and others. We will be talking about that when we come from the break. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we'll come back to this conversation. Please, we'll read your comments. Keep them coming. We'll read your comments, and let's know where you're following this conversation from. And we will continue to discuss here. So please use the numbers there. You can send a text. You can send us your comments on Facebook or YouTube. We will read them, and we will engage with you. So let's take a short break. We're coming back to this conversation shortly. All right.
Jambo Kenya.
Jambo Kenya.
This is to welcome you to the Kenya Healing and Deliverance Crusade with the title In the Day of His Power for the 16th and 17th of May 2024 at the Kasarani Stadium. Both conferences in the morning, 9 a.m., and the crusade in the evening, 5 p.m. of Thursday and Friday. There'll be healings, there'll be miracles, there'll be signs, and there'll be wonders. There'll be deliverances, there'll be breakthroughs, there'll be impartations for ministers and church workers, and fire baptism in the Holy Ghost. It shall be explosive.
God's going to be there. God's going to do what only He can do. Be sure to invite your friends, your loved ones, your neighbors. Let everybody gather together there and let their lives be transformed.
All the way from Nairobi, from Nyeri, from Kiambu, from Kajiado, from Nakuru, from Kakamega, from Bungoma, Kisumu, Kisii, from Machakos, Embu, Mombasa, Kilifi, from Mandera, Garissa, and all the other counties in Kenya.
Wow.
Ensure that you are there.
Praise the Lord. Make sure you don't miss this. Bring your friends. Doesn't matter whether they go to church already or not. Doesn't matter whether what denomination they're in. It's for Jesus. It's a life transforming time. Let them come with you and let their lives be transformed. Now we see Kenya rising up in victory, rising up in glory.
Hallelujah.
Welcome back to the show, and today we are talking about trauma-proofing your mind. And before we went to the break, we discussed what exactly trauma is about, and the fact that there are many traumatic events that can, there are events that can trigger some kind of trauma, that feeling of kind of oppression, mental oppression, depression, and the like, and anxiety. Those are some of the things we've talked about. We've talked about those events, and the fact that people react differently. Most of the people react by avoiding the situation. You don't want to go back to where, or when you pass by the place, or if somebody reminds you, triggers, things that trigger those memories. If you find that when somebody reminds you something, you feel anxiety, then there is something that is hidden that has not been dealt with. And so we talked about confrontation, exposure, some of the ways that strategies that can be used to deal with it. So we want to come back to this conversation. Jane, I want us to go back to the conversation, and we'll be answering your questions. Please keep them coming, and we will be able to answer your questions. And I have a question here. How does one deal with death? Can exposure help? I don't think so. So of course there are some things you can't. We will deal with that. I'll ask you what to do. So let's go back to what are the signs. So you said if somebody, this is one of the things you have said. When somebody discovers they're avoiding something, that's a sign.
Yeah, it's a symptom.
It's a symptom.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the symptoms. What are the other symptoms of trauma?
Yeah, some of the symptoms, like you said, avoidance is when you realize, like let's say one day you got yourself into a lift, alafu ikafunga, and then you were there maybe for an hour. So basically somebody like that will be avoiding lifts. So that's a sign that for sure it created a trauma in you,
right,
but you didn't realize.
Okay.
Another thing is anger.
Right.
You're getting angry anyhow.
Right.
Depression sometimes is also mirrored by PTSD.
Okay.
So one could be going through depression, and they don't know even the cause of this depression. And imagine it could be a PTSD. It's something that is recurring, and it just triggered, and you didn't realize. Like you find situations where somebody was sexually molested.
Okay.
And that issue, since it happened when you were young, maybe about 6 years, 10 years, when you were in primary, you kind of like, it was not a big deal. And for sure, it was never a big deal. But now when this person get married, you find them reacting, and you're like, oh, what is all this? Can you imagine that the 10-year event, because it was a one-time event, is something that just happened one time. It now come and start replaying in your marriage. Okay. And so if you start viewing your husband like the man who molested you, again, that brings a challenge. So when you're having that anger, when you're having a heart palpitation, the heart is racing.
Okay.
When you experience something, you see your guy coming and you're like, hey, you remember that very issue. Okay. Because things like sexual challenges are very bad when it comes to PTSD.
Okay.
Actually, there are some things that may not get to PTSD level.
Yeah.
But anything that is violent, it kind of get there.
All right.
So these are some of the things that will actually help you know that for sure hapa niko na issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So I think that discovery, that pathway of discovery, very, very important. You're talking about anger, fear, depression, palpitation, or anything, any reaction, physiological reaction or mental reaction that kind of triggers that memory. Is really a sign there is something. Okay, so let's talk about the lift situation. Maybe we can use that as a good example. So you had this drama with a lift, maybe one of the big ones in the city. Yeah. So now, wherever you go to these big buildings, you're so scared, you're so frightened, and you have to take 12 stairs up to an office because you can't use the lift. How do you deal with that? And by the way, maybe you can even tell us if you've had to counsel someone and they take them through the exposure therapy until they recovered from that, and now they never used to use lifts because of the problem, but now they were able to manage that. Tell us those stories of recovery and the success. Yeah, so when they come to recovery, for example, it depends on when you even experience whatever it was. Okay. Like let's say, when they come to lift, as you have mentioned, you entered into a lift,
And even when you did that, you did not have the same experience you have today.
Right.
Now you do understand that anything that is human-made will always have technical errors.
Okay.
And so that machine, just like any other machine, maybe you are more exposed to other different machines. And I'm sure you have had to take your machine to whatever, or even if it is a car, to a mechanic.
Right.
Meaning that at one point you're even stuck on the road.
Okay.
But once the mechanic worked on it, it did go, it did move. So you just compare this. I bring a similar situation to you. This car stalled on the road. We invited a mechanic who actually worked on it, and we were able even to go all the way to Mombasa. Mm-hmm. Now here is a lift. The lift had a challenge. It is true you were in for that long. So you compare with that car that stalled for an hour or two. But when you invited the mechanic or the technician, they came and worked on that thing and started working. And so you start now bringing real life situation, helping that person to understand that that particular lift had mechanical issues. And this is where you even, like now, for example, let's say me being your counselor, I'm also in an office whereby we have to use lift. You know, I can go to the lift with you. We go down, we come up, we go down, we come up, and you're able to say, wow, okay. And anyway, it could have just been a technical problem. So you start now, you look at the same situation, but the way you address it is very different. For example, like even now the issue I mentioned here, because it is an issue when it comes to marital issues, okay, whereby somebody was molested, you know, and almost always, most of the time it's a family member, mm-hmm, or they were ambushed somewhere, mm-hmm, and somebody violated on you, you know. Mm-hmm. So you talk to that person and you start now showing them the difference, you know, mm-hmm, because it happened when they were 10 years, for example. Now this woman is already 30 years, so this man was probably also molested in whichever way. Mm-hmm. So you now start giving them the 10-year and this 25 or 30-year-old person. And you know, you allow them to read, like now we've been reading so many things happening. The same way things can be stolen from your office. Somebody can violate you. Mm-hmm. You didn't, you know, I just take you through that and I start helping you understand. You didn't tell them to come in and violate you. Si kufungua mlango nikamwambia kuja niibie hizi vitu.
Okay. So would you say that one of the reasons why sometimes people are unable to cope is they kind of attribute some kind of failure on their part?
The self-blame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Self-blame,
guilt, you know.
Or self-blame and guilt. So yeah, I think if somebody is then blaming themselves, uh-huh, or guilting themselves, uh-huh, as they say, uh-huh, then perhaps that could allow that kind of you know, painful situation to go undealt with. That's what you are saying.
Precisely. And this is where, for example, if you come to me, the main skill that we use on such kind of things, we call it CBT. Mm-hmm. This is where we talk about the cognition, yes, the cognitive behavior therapy.
Okay.
Because the cognitive is about the mind, the way you view things, you know. So I'll help you, because behavior, when you change the behavior, when you change the way you look at things, the thoughts,
yes,
yeah, uh-huh, the way you view things, if I change my way of viewing things, it will automatically affect my behavior. And if it affects my behavior, it will automatically again affect my feelings.
Okay.
So basically the CBT is about the cognitive behavior therapy.
Okay.
Where the way we view things affect our behavior and ultimately affect our feelings. Okay. And so you realize that such a person, you know, unamsaidia to know that I did not invite this particular situation. It found me.
Yes.
And you know, it happened. You know, it's not happening, neither is it going to happen. Then I was a small girl. It was violated by a big man, a big person. So they violated because they were bigger than me. Now I am big. I can confront them. You see, now I can fight back. They told me if I tell on them, they will kill me. Now I know there is law. You see, a child does not know that there is law. I can go to the police, I can do what? They were shown the knife or maybe a gun, and so now there they are. But now today, the beauty is, there's also a therapy that we use. We call it empty chair. I can help you, for example, if the person who violated is even dead, we can recall the person, you know, and you can You know, and this is where now the church talk about forgiveness.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Wonderful. Amazing stuff. So let's deal with the one that a lot of people find a bit difficult to deal with. Not a bit, it's quite tough. Death.
Okay.
So you've lost someone, a loved one, a family member, and obviously you've gone through the grieving and all that, or rather, and I mean, you have to confront it. You have to grieve through the whole thing, and and it can actually. So talk about it. Is the trauma associated with having to mourn your loved one real? Are there unique ways of dealing with it from a psychologist's point of view? How do you find healing out of that? And since maybe perhaps you might not use the exposure, unless maybe you decide you're going to start working for the morgue, so that then you're dealing with as many dead people as possible, or you are not a nurse. I mean, there are nurses who work in those very tough situation where they are also they are losing patients depending on where those emergency wards. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, let me first of all say that it doesn't matter whether you're a nurse or even a doctor or even a mortician.
Okay.
When you lose a loved one, loss and grief is for every human.
Okay.
Because those are others. You know, you're likely to mishandle them, you're likely to, but now when you lose your own, this is where the trauma, the PTSD is likely to come in.
Okay.
And of course, as I said, we have different skills and techniques with dealing with different issues. When it comes to death, of course, it doesn't, here we don't talk about exposure therapy. It's only when you're afraid of the dead, that is when you can flood you.
All right.
Then you can be taken to a morgue and and you can start seeing. There are people who just fear the dead, not because they lost her or whatever, but because you are alive today. Then, this minute, then the next thing you're like, so it's quite scary, However, we talk about loss and grief, which basically is not just for the dead, but even for many other things that you could be attached to.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to death issue, whether it is traumatic or not, first of all, it depends on the attachment.
Okay.
You can lose a mother, you can lose a father, a child, and you don't necessarily go through trauma.
Okay.
Because how close was I with you? And remember, like even a father and a mother, when they pass on, when they come even to, like now, I said I have 4 children, how each one of them will mourn me is very different.
Okay.
They're likely to mourn me very differently, depending on how I related with each one of them, And so basically, I'll go back to acceptance. Remember, the loss and grief has process. It's a process, actually. And the first reaction is anger. Ni nini hii? How? Unasema nini? Ati amekufa. Haiwezekani.
Yeah.
And this is where sometimes you have to take those people to the morgue to see the person even before they are buried.
All
because
right.
if you happen to bury them before they see them, they are likely to remain in denial. And so, like now, what our brothers in the Muslim world do, it's good, but I also find it a bit challenging when it comes to trauma. Because, for example, like you've died in the morning, your people have not come from wherever. And by the time they are coming, like I have a friend I went to college with, and actually she told me that she was in school. The father died in the morning. In the evening, the father was already buried. So you come the following, unaoneshwa kaburi. You're like, apana, this cannot be my dad. And I think there's something I like about how the church does it. When they invite people, the family members, they are the first people to come and bury the person, take the soil and bury the person, so that it can stick in your mind that truly that person died and he's the same one. You see, first of all, wanamwona kwa jeneza, they see the person being lowered, and then they bury the person. So that particular process, it becomes very, very easy to heal the person. And they even see the eulogy, which is quite key. That whole process is actually what will help the person to heal. And so the first reaction is, of course, anger. Anini mnasema, And of course, the second one is denial. In denial, my dad atakufa aje. Haiwezekani. So you see, that is the way it goes. It goes on. So by the third day, some of the people have already accepted. Enyewe ni ukweli. My dad is not sitting in the same seat that he always sit on. my dad's car na vile naipenda bado iko kwa parking. Enyewe yuko kwa bedroom yake. You know, now these are things that you keep on seeing that are kind of like telling you, yeah, it is true. So you are in denial, you are angry, now you have started accepting. So as you continue accepting, maybe now the burial comes. And truly, you go to the morgue and you see the person already dressed. You know, they are not dressing them, they have been dressed, they are there. They are not moving. And they're like, how? You can even touch, you know?
Yes.
And you're like, oh, okay. And then the person, of course, is taken to whatever, and finally they are buried.
Right.
So that, witnessing that whole process actually reduces the trauma.
Okay.
Because you keep on reminding yourself, I saw it. Yeah.
So there's one small thing that I find, you know, I think all of us are amateurs. You know, no one is a hero in dealing with death, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
So what some people actually do is, I hear this all the time. Somebody saying, so and so did not cry, therefore they are going to somewhere down the road, they will just moan and break down and all that. So kind of people feeling that, why is so and so behaving like they are so strong? We just suspect they are hiding something. I mean, speak to that, because there are some people who have handled the passing on of their relatives so in the, you know, with such level of maturity and kind of you know, strength, until people begin to suspect that huyo ni kujifanya tu anajifanya, siku yake itakuja. I mean, can you speak to that? Is it possible for someone actually to be really genuinely strong, and they had dealt with it, they dealt with it within a short time, so through the rest of the burial process, they're just looking like they are fine, and some people can get offended. Why is this person not mourning?
Well, it's unfortunate that the society is quite judgmental. One thing I have to say, and I have just said, is that even if a parent died, you know,
yes,
children are yet what and wake,
yes,
they'll mourn that parent differently,
okay,
depending on the way they related.
Okay.
Another thing is that one person may be more exposed to more things than another.
Okay.
For example, somebody who has stayed in the Western world and somebody who has lived locally, the way we mourn is a bit different.
Okay.
Because there are some things when we witness pale unapata ya, you know. So people are very different, and it's so unfortunate, especially when it comes to wife-husband issue.
Yes.
If, for example, your wife died and you behaved, or maybe you looked, because you know it's the people judging you.
Yes.
You looked strong, because looking weak doesn't mean crying and falling. No. You can even fall, but you don't mean it.
Yes.
If you want people to pretend, because you see, like now we hear about professional mourners.
Right.
How does, and even we see, like you watch a program.
They are also in the Bible, you know.
Yeah, you watch a program
Yeah.
and you see somebody literally crying, and you wonder, how did that tear, how was it generated?
Okay.
Yeah, yet they were just acting anyway. It's not like you're dead, we are just acting.
Yeah.
So ukweli ni kwamba, it's like now guys will start saying, si hata tulikuwa tunamuona with that woman there.
Yes.
That is why he's even happy that after burying the wife, ataoa tu, you see?
Yeah.
Ama ataolewa tu. So we have had all those kind of cases. But let me tell you, just be yourself. Forget about people. People will say things, mourn like you. You know, your experiences are not my experience. Like I said,
yes,
depending on the experiences I've had in life,
right,
I may find it a big deal, or probably not a big deal.
Okay.
You know, or maybe I'm still processing.
Right.
You know, like kwangu mimi naamini tu ni kitu tu tunazika pale. Hiyo ni jeneza tu tunazika, mami atakuja. No, such a person, you don't expect them to keep on falling. Mamaki hajakufa, you know? So it depends on where you are. Remember, I've said mourning is a process.
Okay.
So now in this whole process, where are you? So you could be in the denial by the time we're even burying. So where mtu wako hajakufa? So unalia nini? So let us understand that depending on where I am in this whole process of loss and grief, I'm likely to mourn in a different way. And people don't have to mourn in the way you expect. Kuanguka sio kumourn.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. Thank you so much, Jane. Amazing insights. And I believe that you know, people are getting to know what to do. We don't expect you to fall and scream and dramatize. You can actually you know, mourn in a dignified form, and we do not have to judge nudge. I think that's a challenge, Jane, that you know, kind of like we have certain scripts and ways we expect people to deal with you know, this sort of traumatic situation, and because of that, we kind of like then expect that if you are not really mourning according to our script, then we begin to suspect, you know, to put you in the list of, we are not too sure. You know, in Africa, people don't die. Nobody dies a natural death in Africa. I know that's not necessarily a correct statement, but you know, in Africa, everybody is killed somehow. Anyway, now I'm saying that on a light note.
I get you.
It's on a light note. But yes, so absolutely amazing. So. I'm just checking some of the comments here. You know, Karen is enjoying this conversation. Very informative discussion. Let's learn. Cognitive behavior therapy, CBT. I'm learning. So that's a big highlight for Karen there. All right. So if you have any questions, you have any comments, we will read them, we will tackle them. We would like to know what you've been going through. If you have any questions for my guest here, and as we talk about, you know, dealing with trauma proving ourselves. So maybe, Jen, you can summarize for us. So we have discussed several things. We've discussed how to recognize the trauma, and some of the signs, symptoms, and then we have also talked about this path of the way people go through the trauma situation, anger, fear, depression, palpation, and then denial, and then you know, they get angry, then the acceptance, and then the witnessing, kind of that exposure. Is there anything else that you would like to add to that, so that as we wrap this up, you know, then we can if there are any questions, we can deal with them as we close this. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing about trauma-proofing your mind is exposing yourself to realities of life.
Okay, wonderful.
Realities of life, because be real. Don't be fake.
Yes.
Because like I said, to trauma-proof yourself, or rather to trauma-proof your mind, it's not very easy. Why? Because, you know, you can only be very perfect if you know exactly what to expect.
Okay.
For example, like now, these floods that we're experiencing right now, very many people, especially in the posh estate, they kind of like did everything, and they were like, eish, mvua ikuje, upepo ikuje, sijui nini ikuje, hainiwezi.
Yes.
They did, you know, they did the check.
Okay.
When they went to the fundis, you know, or the contractors, wakahakikisha kila kitu iko sawa.
Right.
But right now, maji imeingia.
Right.
You know, because there are some things that you cannot prove yourself from.
Right.
And so the best thing you can, the best way to prove, to trauma-prove yourself is when you accept reality and you read wide. You see what is happening in the Western world, see what is happening where and where and where, and realize that you're only human. And these things lipata wengine, hata zinaweza kupata.
Right.
You know, being real.
You know, you reminded me, today I was looking at Psalms 88. And I mean, if you read Psalms, Psalms is full of drama. You know, you will find almost every known human emotion expressed or documented in the book of Psalms.
Precisely.
I cried to the Lord and did not hear me. You know, I was in pain. I was in darkness. I was in fact, one of the, I think, verses in Psalms 88 is talking about when this floods surrounded me. And I was like, oh, really? So this business of being surrounded by a flood, you know, it's
not new.
It's not new. It's not new for the floods to actually overwhelm you, you know, and be threatened by a flood. Actually marooned, you know, you are in the island and there's water everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, so basically you're saying that every possible human emotion, we should be prepared for those kind of emotions.
Precisely. And if you look at, now that we are in a Christian setup, the platform, we should consider like John 17, where Jesus actually warned. He warned people that there are so many things that are going to come. Actually, Jesus is talking about the trauma here.
Right, yes.
And he said, the security is only in the Lord.
Yes.
So for me, I'll tell people, the security is actually in the source of your power.
Right.
I talk about the source of your power because I believe you're addressing all walk of life.
Yes.
Muslim and those people who don't go to church and all, it doesn't matter where you go to, back to your power. That is where you get the true, that is the only way you can prove yourself.
Okay.
If you prove yourself with your faith, up your game when it comes to the matters of faith.
Right.
Accept reality. You have no control. But now that I'm here, when the situation faces you, learn to accept them as quickly as possible. And always know, you'll never be able to change things. Most of the time is you changing your reaction. How you react toward issues is what will count.
Okay.
And that is what will make me look stronger than you.
Okay.
That I can be able to deal with this issue and you are not able to deal with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where, Jane comes in. If you are struggling,
Yeah.
if you are going through some dark situation, you're feeling depressed, oppressed, and you have Jane here. You can talk to her, Jane Gitau. She's definitely a very reachable person.
Yes.
And maybe you can tell us, you can tell our viewers, if somebody needs some therapy, some counseling, how they can reach you, how some of the ways, some of the steps. If somebody is actually sick and depressed in the house, what they need to do, and if they can reach out, and some of the ways they can actually find help.
Yeah, so my number is 0721 568 717. I have an office here in Nairobi at Egypt House, 6th floor. And I also have a branch in Naivasha, Equator House, 2nd floor.
Okay.
Yeah, my Instagram is Jane_Mwaura.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would be very, very happy to interact with you. Please don't allow yourself to die in the house. Don't get into addiction, because many people, this is the way they deal with the trauma. You get into addiction, pombe and a few drugs here and there, especially today's generation. Don't do that. There is a solution to it, and you can walk out safely from PTSD when the professional help is offered to you.
Okay.
Even if one counselor failed you, you can always go for a second one.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, no need to take your own life, no need to do anything. Don't do something you will regret. You can always find help. And I think the good news is that there is always help.
There's always
if you
help.
cry out, I think one of the things I've discovered, if you search the word cry out in the Bible, just do a digital search, you'll be very surprised how there are so many scriptures that talking about I cried out to the Lord and he helped me. So if you are out there, you are in trouble, or you've been facing some very traumatic situation in your life, reach out and find some help. And I do hope that this program has been helpful to you. You've learned how to deal with some of these things. Don't keep something hidden. Don't let if there is something that has triggered in your life, then maybe perhaps you need to find somebody who can walk you through, and exposure is the best therapy. If it is water, you learn how to swim. Maybe
Even
this is the
group
time
therapy.
to go and practice your swimming lesson that you've been postponing. It could save your life. So it's not to walk away, it's not to feel depressed or frightened, it's actually to deal with this situation. Wow. So thank you very much, Jane. It was a real pleasure having you on the show, and you helping us and sharing with us some very wonderful insights. Free of charge, and so that's very, very kind of you. So I do hope that people will reach out to you, and then you can actually get you don't charge a lot of money, but obviously for your time you normally get some little compensation.
Yes.
Very graciously. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. This has been an amazing conversation. I do hope that you'll be able to find a way to trauma-proof your mind. Have a great Monday. Have a great week. And we will see you again. Monday Morning Digest is your show. It's a time to discuss various, important issues in life. And so, thank you very much. So, Jane, maybe you can just say bye to our viewers.
Yeah, so thank you very, very much. Just ensure that you keep well, you keep safe, and keep trust up your game when it comes to matters of faith. The Lord already assured us that there is help when we seek Him, and He shall respond to us accordingly. And we even ask people, we can respond to you accordingly. Over and above that, I'm also an evangelist, so I can always pray with you if I didn't do anything else. God bless you.
All right. That's all we had for you. Bye, and we'll see you another day, same time. Keep it elevated. God bless you. And bye for now.
Amen.
Amen.